smart for this. To him, it's like playing chess. That's all he's doing right now. He doesn't believe any of this.
I feel like I took
That's my
crazy
opinion,
pills.
anyway.
Go ahead,
Kocho,
Kocho.
you haven't convinced me that you believe this, bro. I know you're just doing you enjoy doing this for some reason. Counter argument.
You know, I bring this up all the time, like the lottery. If I had a friend who told me that they had a machine that they built in their house, and the machine tells them the winning lottery tickets every night, and then I didn't believe them, and then they showed me the lottery numbers before they came out, they predicted them exactly correct, and I was like, okay, how'd you do that? Look, my fucking machine. I was like, let's do it again tomorrow. He does it again the next day. You know what I'm gonna fucking believe? I'm gonna believe that his machine works, dude, because he's making correct predictions. And unless he's a genie or a god, he made a machine that can make predictions correctly. So this is the way that I actually have confidence in people's claims, is if they can make verifiable predictions, I have no choice but to believe them. And that's all that I've seen here with LIGO. LIGO's made verifiable predictions that people have, confirmed by viewing them. You wouldn't be able to do that unless the information that they had was correct. But that's just that's just the way that I see things, I guess.
Yeah, you think they made a prediction. You were fed a story. You weren't there. There's no way for us to. There's no way for us to
Validate.
verify that, right? Absolutely no way. So, and I told you there's ways that they can falsify this, and I told you they have monetary interests, and I also told you that what a coincidence. For 15 years they've been looking for this. They couldn't find it under the old facility. They convinced the funders to give them billions of dollars to upgrade the facilities, and the next day they detected this. Now, if you don't understand that, Kosho, which I think you do, I mean, what can I tell you? It's a story,
Kosho,
bro. They told you a story.
Yeah, you understand these people are like mad geniuses, right? Even though they're evil. So if they know there's going to be some anomaly in the sky at a certain point, these people are going to be able to see it. That'll corroborate our shit math or whatever the hell we're doing with this machine. Yeah, dude. I'm pretty sure this guy understands, bro. He seems too smart, bro.
So what you're claiming now is that these people are so smart that they're able to make these predictions and know what's going to happen beforehand. But it's not the reason they're telling us. It's for some other reason, some mysterious reason that we don't know, but are still giving them the capability of making the predictions to know what's going to happen in the sky. So that's a pretty interesting claim. It's more incredible than the one I'm making myself, but regardless, it's no different than what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the explanation they're giving is qualified by the predictions that they're making with it. So if you're saying they can make those predictions otherwise, okay, well then they're even more. That's even more impressive than than what they're claiming. So
using logic and reason, bro.
Hey, what if they're friends? What if they're friends with the people that are giving out the money, and it's all like a behind the scenes thing, where like he knows the number because the person told him the number they're gonna pick. That's what we're dealing. We're not dealing with real predictions. We're dealing with people like post-dicting the information and calling it predictions and all that kind of shit. Like just all underhanded, backstage, obvious fake shit. Not anything that's like, oh, obviously they predicted it. They're really like on the money. They must be right. I mean, planes can't even land on a spinning ball. You know that. So come on.
Yeah, but
You're definitely you're one of the smartest Jeremys in the room.
They're viewing explosions in the sky before they happen. They're knowing where to look in the sky to view an explosion before it's going to occur.
Yeah, Sarah.
That's what
somebody must be making that happen then.
No, that's impossible. Exactly. That's what they convinced you of.
It's all post-dicted. I mean, it was all figured out anyway with the stereocycles and all that. So,
stereocycle.
Like you're gonna act like you don't know what the stereocycles are now?
No, I'm gonna have to pretend I don't know what it is to understand what you're saying, because I do
Well,
know
that
what the
makes
Saros cycle is. I don't think it has anything to do with predicting explosions in the sky.
Oh, explosions? I didn't know you were talking
Yeah,
about
explosion.
explosions.
Yeah, my bad. We're not talking about eclipses. We're talking about viewing, the supernova and kilonova and hypernovas that the LIGO is predicting, or that they detect, and people are viewing with amateur telescopes.
Hmm. And those are like annual?
No, of course not.
Well, then how do they predict it?
Because LIGO detected them. Is what I'm saying. LIGO, the gravitational waves came
Oh, the
in.
gravitational waves. Okay.
Right, yeah, they come in slightly before the light does, and so when LIGO detects them, they have an idea of where it's coming from, and then people can view, the actual thing. And just to be fair, SE has pointed out that there has been some that they did not view. So I won't even claim anything about those ones, but there's plenty of them they did view, and those ones I would have to say I feel pretty confident about.
So the gravitational wave was detected before the light. This is what he's trying to tell us. Like, keep that in mind, right?
Yeah.
In order for this prediction that he claims happened, he claims they detected the wave and not the light first.
And yeah, in these
So
cases,
something traveled faster than the speed of light in order for this detection to happen. I'm just saying that's another one of their, yeah,
What's a gravity
fantasies.
wave made of? What? Hey, Kosha, what's a gravity wave made of?
not made of anything. It's
Nothing.
a
How could it be?
disturbance.
How could it be a wave if it's waving? If it's nothing, how could
It's
nothing
a
be
disturbance in
waving?
space time.
Okay, so what's that made up of? Like what's waving?
Space time is just coordinates, like length, width, height, time. There's
Space
coordinates.
time itself?
Yeah, space time are just coordinates. It's not made of anything.
So you mean what? Wait a minute. How could that be? Like you mean like it's not made of anything, but you're saying it's something that's waving.
No, it's the coordinates. So, for instance, LIGO is specifically made so that it can measure the lengthening or shortening of either one of those columns. To where when the lights when the gravitational wave passes through that column, it's either lengthened or shortened, and so that's why
What
the
what's
light.
what's
That's,
lengthened or
that's, that's
shortened?
how the distance, the
Distance
actual
to what?
distances.
To what?
What do you mean distance to what? The distances that are there. So a length there in that column is going to be lengthened or shortened. The actual coordinates are what space time is, right?
Yeah, but if
So
something's waving,
the gravitational wave is creating a disturbance in that coordinate system.
well, how can you disturb something that's nothing?
I never said it was nothing. It's
You
a
said it's
coordinate
nothing.
system. No, it's that there's no substance. It's the coordinates. The coordinates are what space time is.
Right, but what are they detecting? Like, what is it that's waving?
The disturbance in the coordinate system. What they're detecting is the lengthening or shortening of the coordinate system in either
But don't,
direction.
but like you're saying that just the coordinate system is disturbed. Doesn't make any sense. It's like this thing that doesn't exist that's being disturbed.
It
Like it's
does
not made up of
exist.
anything.
You keep saying words I'm not saying. I never said it doesn't exist. I'm saying
What's it made up of then?
the coordinate system, length, width, and height, and time. These are coordinates. So what
Yeah.
happens is they measure the lengthening or shortening of either one of those columns. They measure
What?
this by the interference pattern of the
But
light.
wait, what do you mean columns?
The light should be coming in at the same time, and there shouldn't be an interference. There should be constructive interference, but they
Oh,
come
okay.
in.
So it's light that's being disturbed.
No, it's the length of the path of the light.
Oh, okay. Length of the path of the light. That's what I was trying to get at. Okay.
Right. It's
Okay.
exactly the
So,
same length, so they should be coming in at exactly the same time, which they almost always
hmm,
do, and they get an
almost like,
interference pattern whenever they don't.
oh, okay, interference pattern. Okay, we're talking interferometry then.
Yes, it's a
Oh, perfect.
LIGO, yeah, laser interferometer, yeah.
Awesome. That was a great talk the other night with Alan. Did you guys want to get back to that? Like, because he was trying to tell you that it doesn't work if it's rotating. It's like they conflated the rotation with this ether wind. Did you look into
What?
that further since you guys talked about it?
Yeah, we didn't talk about interferometers.
Oh, you guys were talking about rotations or orbits of planets, right?
No, I mean we talked
They're
about
talking about angles to planets.
GPS. Yeah, you talk about
GPS too,
GPS,
yeah.
and he had thought that the coordinate system comes from the
Second
satellite
order corrections. That's right.
in the ECI frame, and he was wondering why that's
Yeah.
the case. It doesn't come in that frame; it converts to that frame, but that doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter.
Well, I mean, it really doesn't matter because I'm not sure where he comes up with this, but I've actually seen that code. Like the code actually describes. There's no way for the code to have that in there. Each satellite has its coordinates in the orbital plane, its own orbital plane. That's just how it works. It converts that to the ECI frame. It's expressed in reference to the Earth, so it has to convert that to the ECI frame and then to the EF frame. But that's not. It's
Do you
not
think
relevant in this
you think
discussion.
he's just mistaken in the way he's interpreting it?
Possibly, or maybe he's getting his information from somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. I mean, I don't know if you noticed this, but I saw Dr. Bennett on his show, on Alan's show, and so Alan and somebody else had got in an argument about aberration from Dr. Bennett, and I was listening to him talk to Dr. Bennett about aberration, and then he had described to Dr. Bennett how you can derive Earth's velocity from stellar aberration, and Dr. Bennett said he didn't know that. He just learned that from Alan. So I'm surprised that his argument for how aberration doesn't show Earth's velocity comes from Dr. Bennett when he was learning about it from Alan.
I think there was another reference to it. And as far as no, he's not learning about Earth's velocity. He's showing how they've substituted the idea that there's a velocity to the rotation or some kind of idea of it going around the sun, which there's no detection or any kind of reading that could ever really they could even conflate. But it seems like the whole idea is that Bennett is a geocentrist, doesn't think that Earth's moving at all. You know, he thinks there's an absolute stationary reference frame by necessity, and he has other reasons to think that. There's an interesting book. Did you watch the Ether Cosmology meetup that you were invited to? You watched that? Okay, yeah, because that book. Did you ever check that out? The one he seems to go by.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know how people can think it's just a ball that's stationary. That makes no sense. Like, and the ball doesn't make any sense at all because it just can't work. You know, for so many reasons. And the movement can't work. So I don't know. I don't know how you really believe it. I think I agree with SE. It's kind of like a game for you, like a chess game at this point. But you can't really you can't get into it unless you kind of convince yourself that you believe it or something. I don't know. I mean, you're smarter than this. Come on. It's not moving. It's not a ball. Get over it.
Right.
Honestly.
See, the thing is, if I were talking to people who had, delved as much into GPS as I had, I would probably consider what you're saying. However, I know for a fact that if you understood how GPS worked, right, you understood how the signals are sent, what the signals are expressing. It's crazy to even think that that's not the case, dude. Their coordinate system they're using is a massive coordinate system where they're coming from 22,000 miles away. And there's no way for that to be any other case because that's expressed in the message. And there's no way for them to get your position correctly unless those messages are giving correct information. So it's just.
So you're saying Alan thinks those are second order corrections rather than first order measurements, and he's wrong about that?
No, I'm not. I wasn't saying. Not, at this point, I'm not saying anything about Alan's interpretation of it. I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm responding to what you said about why it's like crazy to believe that.
Well, you referred back to GPS because that's Alan's interpretation that you were disagreeing about. Like he's saying those are second order corrections, and you're saying there's no way to do it without that already baked into it, right?
No, I'm using that as an example of why it's not crazy. It's not crazy at all to think that whenever you realize that these things, GPS, it only works using a Earth the size of our Earth and a coordinate system, with a radius of 22,000 miles, or no, 12,000 miles.
Well, that's interesting because Alan has like the exact. I mean, he seems to know what he's talking about. If he doesn't, I'd love to hear you guys suss it out. Really, like just get down to the details of what you guys are both saying. Like maybe there'd be some kind of like understanding at the end of the whole conversation. Because he thinks it's like just patently obvious in one way that it's first order measurements say it's absolutely stationary, not just relatively stationary.
No, there's no measurements about the Earth being stationary. What happens is
the GPS. You need a
what happens is the GPS.
Stationary
GPS uses an orbital reference frame. I just posted it right here. This is part of the code for the GPS. This is what it uses to give you its position. These are all coordinates for they're called Keplerian coordinates. They're coordinates that express an orbit. So they're not using. You have to convert them to the ECI frame using these coordinates.
All right. And you convert them to the ECI frame, and that's what gives you the distances and stuff that you think they're actually.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's just
the first order measurements. The first order measurements you can show me, right? That include this whole idea you're talking about.
Yeah, the first order measurement. So in order for them to give you any information, they have to speak to you in terms of your reference frame, which is the ECEF reference frame. So it's got to make a conversion from its orbital frame to the ECEF frame, and the ECI frame is just a step in that process.
Okay. So there's like a second order correction that he thinks isn't necessary, and it's just to show this like idea that there's some kind of motion. And you're saying no, it wouldn't work without that.
No, it's just a necessary step into converting it from an orbital frame. So the orbital frame has to be referencing something. It references the Earth as it's fixed with the stars fixed around it. And then all it does from that point is it converts it to the same frame, just rotated to whatever the, whatever, what do you call that? Greenwich mean time, whatever. So whatever time it is compared to where the, what do you call that? First point of Aries is. Sorry.
That's cool.
Yeah. But that's just so it can actually pinpoint your location.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, he's put a lot of work into this, and it'd be interesting to hear you guys actually come to some kind of understanding of what each other is actually saying, because it seems like there has to be something like off in the way that you're interpreting what he's saying or his interpretation of the information. One or the other, right?
Well, I mean, I've talked about this. I had repeated myself like 1,000 times. I
know that's what he was getting annoyed with, because it seemed like you were saying the same thing in a little bit of a different way, but it wasn't like not addressing the point he was really getting at. So maybe you could try it again, maybe sometime.
No, I mean, that's why I posted this. I told him point blank. It doesn't start out in the ECI frame. It just doesn't. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I'm showing that it doesn't. I'm saying that it doesn't. That's just a necessary step into getting to the ECF frame. There's no point in saying it again and again.
Actually, I recorded that conversation. I was going to publish it today anyway. I'll do it right now, and then people can check it out if anyone's interested in hearing that. They missed it.
Yeah, you should accompany this thing that I posted with it, because this is a good reference. This is actually, like I said, this is the part of the ephemeris information that it uses for its own stats. So like this is location, this is its clock data, its velocity, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to get him back in here and have you guys figure it out.
I'm not sure what's there to figure out. Yeah, he can come back in here. I've showed this to him. He never responded to it.
What's that?
As I showed this to him, he never responded to it. But I'm gonna post. I
think you're just like you're talking past each other. He must be, because it's not like you guys are stupid. You can understand what each other are saying eventually.
Okay, but clearly you can see that these coordinates is not in the ECI frame, right? These coordinates are clearly in the frame of its orbit. So it's not like there's nothing to like suss out or anything. It's clear that it's expressing its coordinates in reference to its orbital plane.
So you're saying there's nothing to suss out. You're right. He's wrong.
I mean, I'm showing that. I'm showing it. I mean, it's just here. I don't know what
Well,
else.
I know, but I mean, obviously, he's not a stupid person. He understands exactly what you were saying. It's not like he couldn't understand what you were trying to say. I don't think there has to be something missing in your communication or interpretation, one or the other. It doesn't make any sense otherwise.
From your perspective, what's Alan's claim about the ECI frame?
Well, it's the second order correction that he says isn't necessary, that it's just a way of like conflating it with the idea that it's the rotation rather than, or the distances are for it to be like the satellite, they can get those measurements. I mean, like it's a matter of converting it, right? Have you seen that? There's actually one, I think we were talking about this very thing after the ether discussion. And I was trying to remember what you guys were talking about. And it's similar to the video that he posted on his channel. And that was something by Jaron where it doesn't matter how far away they put the sun, as long as they make these transforms work, then it doesn't matter what distance you put it away because it's the same ratio. It's just a matter of like, working it out for, the distance, and then, it's just a matter of converting it. Like if you have a second order conversion to something that gives you the illusion that it was necessary, then that could be the case, and then maybe it's not as necessary as you insist.
Yeah, except for in GPS, that's not the case. Because in GPS, the actual information they give you is the position. So there's a position that it says it's in is its orbital position. In order to convert that into an ECI frame, that would have to there would have and then get your location. The distances and coordinates would have to be correct. There's no way they can put it in some coordinate system from an orbital plane that doesn't exist and give you your correct position. That's an impossible thing to do. So there's no way to hide some, hide some lie in there and then come out with the right answer.
I think it was Wang's conveyor belt test that made him convinced that it has to be an absolute stationary reference frame. It doesn't work with the conveyor belt test that they were talking about. Did you hear about that? The conveyor belt thing?
Yeah, I've read the paper for that test.
What's your problem with that?
My problem with that, first of all, Wang's claim was that can be used as an accelerometer. He's not claiming that can be used to, measure some absolute speed, right?
Okay.
Like it wasn't making any extraordinary claims. It's a cool device, but it just basically assists accelerometers. You can measure acceleration with it.
Well, if it's, let's say we're right, like say it's a stationary plane, just like it seems, and like would it like blow the whole theory that you're talking about with the GPS?
Yeah, GPS would be something totally different. It wouldn't even work. I mean, it would.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. But once you realize it's a stationary plane, then all those tricks will be obvious to you about the way they do those corrections.
Yeah, but if you come to conclusions by decision and by choice, I don't think that's a good strategy. I think it's better to come to
the globe model
based on the evidence.
Yeah, exactly. Like a plane literally wouldn't be able to land on a spinning ball if it was treating it like it's a stationary plane. Like you can't just have a plane treat the Earth like it's stationary and then have it actually be moving. So there you go. That's the debunk you need. That's it. It's over. You can't treat it as stationary and have it be a spinning ball. I mean, I don't know how much easier it needs to get. I mean, there's no way to
every
argue
time you go to land, you'll murder everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was any chance, there was any chance that there would be a difference between treating it like a stationary plane and treating it like a spinning ball. If there was any difference between those two things, which is why we're having this argument or debate for 10 years now, because there's a big difference, right? And so if a pilot treats the Earth as stationary and planar, There's no way it could possibly be a spinning ball and have them just treat it as stationary and planar. What more could what could you
would
possibly
happen?
say that makes those the same thing?
What would happen to a pilot in his plane if he tried to land on a spinning sphere, but he thought it was a plane? He thought it was a flat.
It would be dangerous. I mean, there would be so many dynamical differences. How could I even like that Lebet guy, the model builder guy? He's trying to do a simulation because you know how he did like a 2-scale simulation showing how you would definitely see the leading edge of a sphere and you would see it taper off to the sides. You would definitely see curvature from the altitude they're at, like he was showing us when you were on at one time. He's also trying to do one where you actually incorporate the dynamics of a spinning ball. He said it's so hard to calculate even how it would possibly work with all of like the rotations and the gradient of tangential velocities. And then you got like the different angles of all the runways that you might have to like be going the opposite direction of the tangential speed that you'd be having to go backwards on. I mean, there's so many things. It's so complicated.
Let's make a prediction.
He can't even program the computer to simulate it.
I know, but you're making a claim that pilots would need to account for this. I'm asking you.
Well, yeah.
What I know. So because you're saying that, you should have an idea of what the consequence would be if it were a spinning ball. He thought it was stationary. What would happen? I know. So what would happen?
Death.
Yeah, death would be one of the consequences.
So
a lot of death.
No, I'm asking what would happen to the plane,
dude.
That's simple. What would happen?
The difference between flying over a spinning ball? If you're trying to treat the Earth as stationary and planar, but it's actually a spinning ball, you don't think that would be dangerous?
Oh, listen, man. I'm asking you because you're making the claim. I'm asking
you. I'm making a claim. I'm just pointing out the obvious, dude. I'm just pointing out the obvious.
So point out the obvious.
It's just 1 and 1 plus 1 equals 2, bro.
If you're not going to tell me, then you're going to have a hard time. I don't know, convincing yourself that it's true.
What are you talking about? Like why? Like for me,
what's going to happen to the plane what's going to happen?
The difference between like a basketball and a frisbee, right? Like it's not the same thing. A basketball is a totally different thing than a frisbee.
Okay, but what's going to happen to the plane when he tries to land and he thinks he's on a flat stationary Earth, but it turns out it's a spinning ball? What's going to happen?
The Earth is going to be rotating, and he's not going to be in the same eastward tangential velocity in that 1-to-1 relationship that he would need to treat it as stationary. It would have to be completely in sync, so perfectly in sync that it wouldn't even be noticeable that it's spinning. And that's impossible for a plane to do, especially if it leaves from a tangential velocity that doesn't match the destination's tangential velocity. If the destination is going faster, even if he was trained to accelerate to match that 1-to-1 relationship that he would need, in a direct eastward 1-to-1 relationship at that 15 degrees or the 500 more or whatever it needed, even if he could catch up to it or was trained to, which he's not, but even if he did accelerate, he'd have to keep continuing to accelerate sideways with the Earth in a 1-to-1 relationship as it slows down to land. And it doesn't, the planes aren't made to do that. It'd have to have jets on the sides. You have to have Dyson ball wheels and a big, huge field for it to roll in. I mean, all the runways would be catered towards that. And none of it would work, bro. Not even like one bit of it. Even all of the ballers' reasons that they try to say it would be the same for don't work. Like, even if it accelerated, it can't pick up momentum. You know, it can accelerate more, but then it's going to have to continue to accelerate to stay in that 1-to-1 relationship with the Earth as it slows down to land. There's no way out of this, bro.
Yeah, but you're assuming he'd have to account for something that isn't
the spin of the Earth.
No, yeah, right. You're assuming he'd have to account for something that isn't even apparent.
It's a spinning Earth. You would have to account for it, right?
All right. You're assuming though that he would have to account for this, even though it's not. Even though it's not apparent. Even though he's constantly making corrections all throughout his flight, from when he left wherever he left, and he's in the air, behaving and communicating with the air, with the wind.
Also, wait, he's taught to make corrections?
And landing.
You're saying that they're taught to make corrections?
And landing on the ground that's already going to have, a difference compared to the air that he's in, because there's going to be wind. There's no reason he has to make a conscious. There's no reason he has to make a conscious effort to know that the Earth's accelerating in order to do that.
Definitely. I mean, with conscious effort, I mean, no matter what kind of conscious effort he puts in, it still doesn't work, bro. Even if he knew, even if he treated it as a spinning ball, he still wouldn't be able to land. That's the ironic thing here. He's treating it like a stationary level, but even if he were to account for it and somehow like try to catch up to the spin, he'd still have to keep continuing to accelerate with the spin as he slows down to land in a different direction, and he would crash every time. It wouldn't work.
Okay, let me ask you a question. In anywhere in the world, is the wind going to be with respect to the surface below it? Let's say, hey, this is the wind speed. It's with respect to the surface below it. This
Yeah,
is
to the
correct.
stationary surface. Yeah,
And
it's always the
planes
wind
fly.
in relation to
Plane,
the stationary surface. If it was a moving
planes,
Earth, if they
planes
had to
fly
deal,
with
listen, Kosho, if they
respect
had to
to the
deal,
air.
listen, if they had to deal with winds as well as a spinning ball, there would be two things to deal with, not just one.
But they only deal with the winds. They only fly through
Yeah,
the air.
that proves it's stationary.
This is how planes work. Okay.
Yeah,
So
because it's stationary.
when they're flying through the air, it doesn't matter how much faster the Earth is spinning from where they left and where they got to. They're flying through the air. So when they're about to land, they're communicating, with the surface of the Earth with respect to the air that they're already, you know, already aware of. They're already flying through the air.
Yeah,
So whatever changes they're making all throughout their flight are
yeah.
being constantly readjusted based on whatever the air is doing. And whatever
Oh,
the
so
air is
wait,
doing
wait,
with
hold on,
respect to
wait.
the
Are you
surface
saying?
is already known to them.
Let me just get
So
this straight. Are you saying the pilots trained to adjust?
it's just to what?
The pilot is making these corrections consciously. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not what I'm saying. You would know what I'm saying if you weren't
Oh,
constantly interrupting me. If you weren't constantly interrupting, you would
dude,
hear what I'm saying. I'm saying
dude.
clearly the pilots are adjusting based on whatever the air's doing, whatever the wind speed is
Oh,
doing.
okay.
This is
So
why
not
they're
not they're not
adjusting.
trying to adjust to the spin of the Earth.
Yeah, there's no need to do that. That's
Well,
not a
because it's not
necessary
spinning.
thing to do.
Well, the only way they wouldn't have to do that is if it weren't spinning,
No, they wouldn't have to do that if it
bro.
were or if it weren't spinning. Because of
Really,
the reasons I'm explaining to you.
dude?
They make negotiations with respect to the wind and the air. The wind
Yeah,
speed is
but
already
that
in
has nothing
reference
to do
to
with the
whatever
spin,
the
dude.
surface is. So the winds with respect to the surface, they're flying with
Yeah.
respect to the wind. There's no reason
So
for them to worry about whatever the earth is doing differently from where they took off to where they're landing.
wait a minute. Are you
It's
saying
not
that
necessary at
if
all.
you, so what would the difference be if they were actually flying over a stationary plane? What would the difference be
There
for the
wouldn't be
pilot?
a difference.
Oh, see, that's where you're just sounding completely ridiculous, bro. It's absurd that you could even say that with confidence.
Right, what would the difference be?
The difference would be that one would be a spinning ball surface and the other one would be a stationary plane surface. I don't know I mean, how much more simple can it be to explain
What
the
would the
difference?
difference be with respect to the pilot's experience?
The
How would he?
experience would be like he
What
would
would be the
probably experience
difference
death
in
a lot
experience?
with the spinning ball. He would experience death because he would not be able to land on a moving surface, no matter what you say about the winds. That would be a second thing to deal with. The winds are pushing him in all directions, and he's got to somehow have this complete sync with this eastward moving Earth. So he could treat it as if it's stationary. And that'd be two things to deal with. The wind has nothing to do with it. The
Okay,
stationary Earth is the only way he can treat it as stationary. I don't
if
know
he's
that you sound
all right,
like you're just avoiding it because this is obvious.
if he's
Obvious.
flying through the air and there's a wind, a 15 mile per hour wind. He's flying through the
What?
air. If there's a 15 mile per hour wind with respect to the
No,
ground,
wind's going all
regardless,
directions.
hold on, dude. Regardless if the ground's moving or not, there's a 15 mile per hour wind on this
No matter
day.
what, there's always a 15
Stop,
mile per
dude.
hour wind.
Stop for a second, dude. On this day, the day this pilot is flying, there's a 15 mile per hour wind. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
With respect to the surface of the earth, because that's how wind is measured with respect to the surface.
Yeah.
Regardless of how fast the earth is moving, the wind is moving that fast with respect to the surface. So he's flying through the air. When he goes to land, he's still going to land with respect to the surface of the earth. With the 50 miles per hour with respect to the surface of the earth. So it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how fast the earth's moving. He's
It
already
would matter. It would matter a lot. What do you mean? How could you say it
all
wouldn't
right.
matter? Because
Why?
the earth moving is totally a different situation than the wind blowing the plane. That'd be two things to deal with.
What's
One,
the difference?
two. The
What's the
difference
difference between
is
the Earth
one is that
moving?
it'd be a curved spinning it'd be a curved spinning ground that it's landing on rather than a stationary planar one. I mean,
Why?
why would I have to say that over again? Because one's
Because
different
the
than the
wind,
other.
the wind is moving with respect to the surface. So whatever the surface is doing, the
Oh,
wind's moving 15 miles per hour faster, right? So
what?
it doesn't matter how fast the Earth's moving. The wind's moving 15 miles per hour faster, and he's
It
moving with
does
respect
matter.
to the air. Yeah.
It
So
would
no, it
matter.
does. It doesn't matter.
Sure it does.
The
Are you
Earth could be
kidding me?
moving 1,000,000 miles per hour, and if the air is moving a million
What?
plus 15 miles per hour, and he's moving with respect to the air,
Are you even hearing
right?
yourself right now? You said that the Earth could be moving 1,000,000 miles per hour and it wouldn't even matter
That's right.
because the wind's moving. Do you
Because
get that that sounds
he's
ridiculous?
moving through the air with respect to the air. All that
No,
matters is what's the air doing with respect to the Earth.
no, it's what the plane is doing with respect to the ground it's about to land on. That's what we're talking about, bro.
Yes,
The plane
exactly.
can be affected by winds, yeah. But if it had to land on a spinning Earth that was moving 15 degrees tangentially eastward consistently, that doesn't stop, then he would also have to account for that. He would have to totally know that that's the case. I mean, he's got lives in his hands, right? He's got his own life and then his passengers, right? So it would have to be a perfect science. And there would have to be only one answer to this, not this philosophizing about winds that might be more effective or more or like in relation to the Earth. If the winds are in relation to the Earth, it means nothing, dude. If the Earth were
It
spinning,
does.
it would not be able to treat it as stationary. It's simple as that.
Planes fly through the air, though.
Yeah,
So
great. Oh my
yeah,
God,
they fly
revelation.
through the air. So if the air is moving with respect to the Earth, then it doesn't matter that the Earth's moving, as long as the air is moving with
It
it. The plane's
doesn't
flying in it.
matter.
They're not gonna have a problem when they're landing. The only
Of
problem
course
they're
they
gonna have
would.
is whatever the difference is between the air and the Earth, which is called wind.
What are you talking about? The Earth moving would totally be a different situation. I don't get why you think it could be stationary and then it could be moving and it would be the exact same thing. That makes no sense.
It's
I don't know
conservation
how
of
you believe
momentum.
it. No, conservation of momentum could be 500 when it starts off. Then it needs 1,000 miles an hour when it's at the equator. So where's it get the extra 500? And how does it continue? Even if it could accelerate that extra 500 miles per hour by the time it gets there, even if it's incrementally and you think of it as like, oh, just a little bit at a time. Even if the pilot were trying to do that, he would have to continue to accelerate, keep up with the Earth to treat it as stationary in this perfect one-to-one relationship, which would be a feat on its own just to keep up with the Earth sideways somehow as it's trying to land. But it would be slowing down to land and still having to accelerate faster in a sideways direction with the eastward tangential velocity and the difference of 500 miles per hour compared to its original conserved momentum of only 500 miles per hour. So it doesn't work. Even if the atmosphere were like pinning them to the one-to-one relationship with the Earth, even if the winds were perfect to make that happen, then it would never be able to fly against the winds because it would be fixed with the winds the way you have to think about it. But no, then it wouldn't be able
It
to fly
doesn't have
against
to
them.
be fixed with the
It
winds.
would
It
have
has
to, or it's
it's
treated
not
as
fixed with the
stationary.
winds. No,
Well, then what
it's
are you
just
talking about
flying.
the winds
It's
for?
flying with respect to the air. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, with respect to the
The air
air,
doesn't have to be
which is
fixed to it. It's obviously
yeah,
flying through it. So it's not
but
fixed
it's in
with
a
it.
separate reference frame, so it doesn't work, bro. Come on.
Yeah, but it's not fixed with the air. It's just flying with respect to the air.
Yeah,
That's how
but
a
then
plane's
if
flying.
the ground were spinning, it'd be a different situation than if the ground were stationary. I mean, how much more do you need, dude?
Yeah, if the air was, you're right. If the air was doing something different than the ground was doing, that would be a problem. If the ground were moving 1,000 miles per hour and the air wasn't, that would be a problem because the plane's flying
Wait,
through the
but
air. Right, but
wait
that's
a
not
minute.
what's happening. The air's moving
Wait a
with the
minute.
surface, give or take the wind speed.
Yeah,
The
but see,
plane's flying through the air. This is just how
doesn't
it
work,
works.
dude. Give or take doesn't work. Even if the wind were like in lockstep, which you can't even claim because of fluid dynamics. But even if that were the case, it's just ridiculous to think that the spinning Earth and the wind are like the same exact thing because wind's going all directions, bro. And the plane can be moving in every direction. It could have to like do a loop around and head against the spin to land on a runway that's like facing upwards and in the opposite direction of the spin, right? And then somehow you've got to believe that it's in the air So it's moving backwards just the right amount to be in sync with this Earth as it's like doing a loop around to land like in a northwest direction towards this runway that's facing whichever direction. It doesn't make it. The calculations are impossible to even think that someone would be like capable of doing that in the cockpit. They would have to have like a little gauge that says this is how fast the Earth is spinning, and you're definitely going to have to speed up to treat it as stationary, and somehow still continue to accelerate with the Earth as you slow down to land, which the planes aren't even made to do that, dude. I mean, none of it works, bro. It's like literally impossible. It debunks your globe so emphatically, and all you said is he's in the air and the winds are moving in with respect to the Earth. That makes no difference. A consistently moving Earth to land on would be different than a stationary Earth to land on. I don't know how you would think they wouldn't be.
I think he's rotationary.
You got to trust the science, Dave.
Oh yeah, that's right. But there's no science involved. There's like the total lack of common sense. Like, is it just common sense, bro? What'd you say, Snack? Because I'm sure it was funny and I couldn't understand you. What was your joke? Did you say
I
something?
think he's rotationary.
Mm. I mean, this one's in your face because it's like, this is dangerous otherwise. It's like we can philosophize about how, oh yeah, I guess we talk about maybe refraction sometimes a little bit, or maybe, some kind of like looks like the sun's going like below the horizon.